Welcome back to another edition of This Week in Track. It's episode number 8, and I'm Kevin Sully. And on today's show, recap from the USATF Indoor Championship, including controversial DQ, and Josh Kerr breaks the British mile record. Let's start with the biggest upset from Spokane. Women's 1500, Heather McLean and Josette Norris go 1-2, edging pre-race favorite Eleanor Purrier. The margin was minuscule at the finish line, 1/100th between Norris and Purrier St. Pierre. Yes, Heather McLean made the Olympic team last year, but based on the way Purrier was running early this year at Millrose and last year, you have to call this one an upset. And you can go back, run the tape, look afterwards and see Purrier turns her head in that home stretch. Maybe that cost her the 100th of a second, but she was incredibly unlucky, not because of how the race unfolded, but just based on who was in the race. Take a look at this. This is last year's Olympic trials finishes. Red is if they didn't run indoors this year. Green is if they did. This is just the running events. Field events, obviously much better participation, but running events, a lot of red everywhere, basically except for the women's 1500 where Purrier, St. Pierre, McLean, the top three were all there. You throw in Josette Norris, who was a threat to make the team. They took this meet seriously. The women's 1500 meter field took this as if Olympic berths were on the line. But things turned for Purrier. Fast forward the next day, and nobody's in the finish shot because she wins the women's 3000 handily. So she'll be on the world team. Other highlights, Grant Holloway runs 7:37, gets the win in the men's 60 meter hurdles. He'll be joined on the team by Jared Eaton and Aaron Mallett. Ryan Krauser throws a world lead in the shot put. Sandy Morris takes the pole vault. Cole Hawker doubles up in the 15 and 3000. Hawker and indoor doubles just go together very well. Women's 60, very close race between the best two American women this year. Makai Briscoe edges out Maribeth St. Price. Both of them will be on the team to Serbia, and both have a shot at the podium there. Christian Coleman gets back in the mid 6.4s, runs 6:45. Great race by Marvin Bracy, equaling his PB there. So we get the Coleman-Jacobs matchup in Serbia as expected. And Aljay Wilson wins her 7th indoor title of her career, which is quite remarkable considering she's only 27 years old still. But there was also some controversy. Donovan Brazier DQ'd in the first round of the 400. Remember, he was entered in both the 4 and 8, but really the focus was the 4. Didn't find out about the DQ for lane infringement until after the 800 had passed. So basically, his meet was going to be over. He thought he was out and done. But then there's an appeal to the appeal. He gets reinstated and runs the 400 meter final. A good reminder that none of us actually know the rules of track and field. Last year they changed the rules about lane infringement. They put out this helpful graphic on War Athletics. This was supposed to calm everything down. But when it comes to track and field meets, none of us really know what's going on. If there was a rules expert like there is in NFL or NBA, you know, when there's a challenge and they go to Secaucus and the person breaks it down, the track equivalent of that would be about 60 to 90 seconds of someone saying, I'm not sure. I don't actually know. I know I'm supposed to be a specialist on these things, but it's track and we really kind of just make this up as we go along. But Brazier got to run the final, and you got to see an elite 800 meter runner, best in the world in 2019, mix it up in the 400. It's funny to see because Brazier's known as a speed guy when it comes to the 800, but you saw in these 400 meter races, it's just a whole nother level of speed. Here's a shot. This is off the second turn. This is the final. You might think, hey, was he up here and is he being obstructed by Trevor Bassett? No, he's just not there. Let me go forward a frame. There he is. This is 150, almost 150 meters into the race. Brazier, it looks like he was put in the wrong race for the first half of this race, but he storms back with this big comeback. Most 400 meter runners dread the last 50. Brazier loves it. He dreads the first 50, which makes him a completely unique character in this event. Excited to see what he does at the World Championships. Over in Boston, Josh Kerr smashed the British mile record, runs 3:48.87. He moves to number 3 all-time behind Hicham El Garouj, Yomif Kajelka, and he did it with a ridiculous negative split. His teammate Walid Suleiman paced him for the first half, and then Kerr just completely took off. Take a look at these splits. He goes through halfway in 1:56.75, and then look at these closing 200 meter splits for Kerr to run 3:48.87. This is Kerr after the race, holds his shoe up, pointing to something. What is he pointing to on the shoe? Let's take a look at what he's pointing to. Oh my goodness. He wrote British record on his spike. That is a whole other level of confidence. It's one thing to say you're going to break the record, but to put it in permanent marker on your spike. I mean, if he was less confident, he could have written it, but on the tongue of his shoe. And that way, if he did it, he still could have shown it to the camera. But if he didn't do it, he could have just kept it completely to himself. But no, he went full-on Sharpie to the outside of his spike. That looks like serious marker, too. That's not something he's just going to be able to remove with a little bit of spit on his finger. You know, in high school, there was a month or so where I wrote my goal time on a little piece of paper, and I put it inside my shoe before I ran. Never worked. Never worked. I just had a sweaty piece of paper in my shoe when I was done. It's actually pretty depressing now that I think about it all these years later.